What if I told you the most feared fighter of World War II didn't just dominate the skies, it rewrote the rules of air combat? Meet the P-38 Lightning, a twin-engine beast so lethal that German pilots named it the Fork-tailed Devil. With blistering speed, devastating firepower, and the range to strike deep into enemy territory, it became a nightmare for the Axis. This was the aircraft that took down Admiral Yamamoto, the mastermind of Pearl Harbor, and became the weapon of choice for America's top aces. But here's the catch. This revolutionary fighter was nearly grounded by deadly handling issues, skeptical commanders, and a design that pushed the limits of 1930s engineering. So how did the P-38 go from near disaster to one of the most legendary warbirds in history? Let's find out. Welcome to Historical Digs, where we explore the untold stories of history's greatest machines. The story begins. It's 1937, and the world stands on the brink of war. The U.S. Army Air Corps is searching for a fast, long-range fighter, one that can escort bombers deep into enemy territory while dominating in dogfights. Enter Lockheed, a company with no prior experience in military fighter aircraft, yet armed with a bold vision for the future of aerial combat. Their answer? The revolutionary P-38 Lightning. This innovative aircraft features twin engines for enhanced power and redundancy, a twin-boom design for improved stability, nose-mounted armament for unparalleled accuracy. But before we dig deeper into the potent P-38 Lightning, hit that like button and subscribe to Historical Digs. Your support helps us bring untold stories from history back to life. A fighter for a military world. Despite initial skepticism regarding Lockheed's claim of a 400-mile-per-hour aircraft, the design for the twin-engine fighter received approval in mid-1937, leading to its prototype's first flight in January 1939. Although Lockheed struggled to deliver the initial test aircraft, they secured a substantial order for 607 P-38s in August 1940. However, production delays meant that by December 7, 1941, only 69 P-38s were operational within the U.S. Army Air Corps. Early on, the Army kept most P-38s stateside for defense, but a few were sent to Alaska in 1942. In the brutal conditions of the Aleutians, they made their combat debut, escorting B-24 bombers, striking ground targets, and proving that the Fork-tailed Devil was just getting started. A twin-boom design. The P-38 stood out from conventional single-engine fighters with its unique twin-boom design. This innovative arrangement separated the engines and turbochargers into distinct booms while placing the pilot and armament within a streamlined nacelle. This offered several benefits, including improved stability, concentrated firepower, and a striking profile that became iconic in aerial combat. Two robust Allison V1710 12-cylinder engines, each generating 1,000 horsepower, were central to its performance. To mitigate torque effects, Lockheed utilized counter-rotating propellers, with each engine spinning in opposite directions, enhancing stability and maneuverability. Turbochargers positioned on the upper surfaces of the booms enabled the P-38 to sustain exceptional performance at high altitudes. The fork-tailed aircraft distinguished itself from most American fighters by mounting all its armaments, 4 50-caliber machine guns and a powerful 20mm Hispano autocannon, directly in the nose. This innovative design eliminated convergence problems, enabling adept pilots to achieve accurate shots at extended distances. Unlike conventional fighters that had specific optimal ranges, the P-38 was capable of effectively engaging targets from as far as 1,000 yards. With a firing rate exceeding 4,000 rounds per minute, the P-38 delivered an unyielding barrage. The autocannon's rounds were not only heavier, but also offered superior stopping power compared to standard 50-caliber ammunition, making the Lightning a formidable adversary against enemy aircraft, ground forces, and even naval targets. Would this unorthodox design actually work in combat? The conflict or challenges. Despite its cutting-edge design, the P-38 Lightning came with its own set of challenges, none more terrifying than compressibility. Imagine this. You're in a steep dive at over 400 miles per hour when, without warning, your controls lock up. You yank the stick, but nothing happens. The ground rushes toward you, and in that moment, you're just along for the ride. Pilots called it riding a runaway train to their deaths. The culprit? Compressibility, a dangerous aerodynamic phenomenon where shock waves formed over the wings at high speeds, rendering the controls unresponsive. Worse yet, the nose tended to pitch down uncontrollably, especially above 25,000 feet, where the effect was even more severe. As one of the first fighters to break the 400-mile-per-hour barrier, the P-38 was venturing into uncharted territory, pushing the limits of aerodynamics before engineers fully understood the consequences. For many pilots, it was a problem with no escape. In the European theater, the P-38 also faced operational hurdles. Early models had a single generator, meaning that engine failure could leave pilots dependent on limited battery power. Engine reliability was another significant concern, with many aircraft forced to abort missions due to in-flight engine failures. These issues stemmed from problems with intercoolers, radiators, and oil coolers, which often went unaddressed at the squadron level, ultimately hindering the aircraft's effectiveness in combat. This led to several fatal crashes, prompting urgent engineering solutions. The P-38 also struggled against agile German fighters like the Focke-Wulf FW-190. Pilots reported difficulties in tight maneuvers and rapid climbs compared to single-engine adversaries. Throughout the war, the P-38 faced numerous challenges but saw ongoing enhancements. Subsequent models tackled many initial flaws, significantly boosting engine dependability and overall capabilities. The P-38J, in particular, rectified many issues from its predecessors, emerging as a top-tier fighter that could rival nearly any other aircraft globally. The battle. In the Pacific, the P-38 Lightning found its true calling. Against the nimble but lightly armored Japanese Zero, its blistering speed, heavy firepower, and rugged durability made it a game-changer in the fight for air superiority. On April 14, 1943, U.S. naval intelligence intercepted an unassuming message encoded in the Japanese naval cipher JN-25D addressed to high-ranking Japanese commanders. At first glance, it was just a dull travel itinerary, departure times, locations, and transport details. But what mattered wasn't the trip itself, it was the man taking it. That man was Admiral Yamamoto, the mastermind behind the attack on Pearl Harbor. A secret too valuable to waste. A top-secret cryptographic program called MAGIC of U.S. intelligence had cracked Japan's most vital codes. The message revealed that in 4 days, Yamamoto would board a Mitsubishi G4M Betty bomber, escorted by 6 Mitsubishi A6M0 fighters, flying from Rabaul to Balalai. The temptation to strike was enormous, but so was the risk. Attacking Yamamoto could expose America's code-breaking success. If Japan discovered the breach, they would change their codes, setting back U.S. intelligence efforts by months, perhaps years. After careful deliberation, the decision was made. Yamamoto would die. The only fighter that could reach him. The task of intercepting Yamamoto fell not to the U.S. Navy, which had suffered the brunt of Pearl Harbor, but to the Army Air Forces. The Navy's F-4F Wildcats and F-4U Corsairs simply didn't have the range. Only one aircraft could do the job, the Lockheed P-38 Lightning. Capable of long-range missions thanks to its twin engines and large fuel capacity, the P-38 was the only fighter that could strike deep into enemy territory and return. Even then, the standard drop tanks wouldn't be enough. A special shipment of 330-gallon tanks was rushed in from New Guinea. The mission's fighters were outfitted with one large and one small tank, creating an odd asymmetrical look. No one cared about aesthetics, they just needed to reach the target. The plan: a perfect ambush. Squadron Commander Major John W. Mitchell devised a meticulous plan. He calculated Yamamoto's exact location at 9:35 a.m. on April 18, 1943, just as his aircraft would descend into Balalai. This was the moment of vulnerability when enemy pilots would be least alert, focusing on landing rather than scanning for threats. The 18 assigned P-38s took off from Guadalcanal's Kukum Field at 7:25 a.m. To avoid detection, they flew at wave-top height, just 50 feet above the ocean, in total radio silence. The pilots were told a cover story. Australian coast watchers had spotted a high-ranking Japanese officer boarding a plane at Rabaul. Whether or not they knew their target, some later recalled being told it was Yamamoto. That knowledge alone was fuel enough for vengeance. The Admiral's death. After 2 grueling hours of navigating over open ocean, Mitchell's squadron arrived 1 minute early at 9:34 a.m. to see 2 Betty bombers descending through light haze. The P-38s dropped their external tanks, throttled up, and banked hard. Lieutenant Rex T. Barber closed in, aligned his sights on one of the bombers. His first burst ripped through its right engine, fuselage, and tail. A second volley hit the left engine, sending the aircraft spiraling toward the jungle below. A column of thick, black smoke signaled its fate. Barber and Lieutenant Tom Lanphier then turned their attention to the second Betty. A hail of bullets tore into the right engine, forcing it to crash land in the sea. Some survivors emerged from the wreckage and were later rescued. Yamamoto was not among them. When Japanese search teams found the wreckage of the first Betty, they discovered Yamamoto's body. He had been thrown clear of the aircraft, still wearing his ceremonial white gloves. A single .50 caliber bullet had entered his left jaw, exited through his right eye, and ended the life of Japan's most revered military strategist. The aftermath. By the war's end, the P-38 had established itself as a formidable fighter. Operation Vengeance was a masterpiece of precision planning and flawless execution. It delivered a devastating psychological blow to Japan. Yamamoto had been more than just an admiral. He was the face of Japan's naval supremacy. His loss shattered morale and left Japan scrambling for a competent replacement. The P-38 Lightning, once dismissed as a temperamental and problematic aircraft, had proven its worth beyond doubt. It went on to achieve more aerial victories in the Pacific than any other U.S. fighter, outperforming even the legendary Hellcats and Corsairs. Though retired from frontline service by 1949, the legacy of the P-38 Lightning lives on. Its distinctive twin-boom design continues to influence modern aviation. Just look at the sleek silhouette of the F-22 Raptor, a distant descendant of the famed Fork-tailed Devil. With over 10,000 P-38s built, only a handful remain today. At least 26 survive, and around 10 are still airworthy. Among them is the P-38L serial number 4453254, a proud member of the Flying Bulls collection. More than just a relic, it's a living, roaring testament to the aircraft that helped turn the tide of war, striking down none other than Japan's most feared admiral. Conclusion: why this matters. The Lockheed P-38 Lightning wasn't just another warplane, it was an engineering marvel, a pilot's nightmare turned into a dream, and a machine that earned its place in aviation history through fire and blood. From its early struggles to its ultimate triumphs, the P-38's legacy is one of resilience, ingenuity, and devastating effectiveness. Challenges plagued the P-38's development. It suffered from compressibility issues, making high-speed dives a dangerous gamble. In the European theater, it struggled against the nimble German aircraft, which exposed its vulnerabilities in dogfights. Some even questioned whether this twin-boomed fighter, with its unconventional design, was worth the trouble. But what the P-38 lacked in finesse, it made up for in sheer versatility. If Europe was its proving ground, the Pacific was its kingdom. Here, the P-38 thrived, outpacing and outgunning the Japanese Zero thanks to its superior speed, firepower, and high-altitude performance. The P-38 wasn't just a fighter. It was a lifeline for the U.S. war effort, escorting bombers, conducting reconnaissance, and executing daring raids deep into enemy territory. The defining moment came in Operation Vengeance when a squadron of P-38s hunted down and killed Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, the architect of Pearl Harbor. In one swift strike, the Lightning dealt a psychological blow reverberating across the Pacific. Some of the greatest fighter aces in American history flew the P-38. Richard Bong, the highest-scoring American ace of World War II, racked up 40 kills in his Lightning. Thomas McGuire, another elite pilot, claimed 38 victories before his untimely death in combat. Even Charles Lindbergh, the famed aviator, flew P-38s on secret missions, pushing their limits beyond what was thought possible. These men weren't just pilots, they were warriors, and the P-38 was their weapon of choice. What if it had been used in Korea or Vietnam? Could it have been improved into a jet fighter? Thank you for joining us and exploring the history of the Lockheed P-38 Lightning. What do you think? Was the P-38 an underrated masterpiece, or did its flaws hold it back from true greatness? Let's settle this in the comments, and don't forget to check out these other videos for more untold stories. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.